Hey, okay, so if you've seen the previous video, then you know that we discussed how to do a hammer-on, how to do a pull-off, and how to do a slide. Well, today we're going to take that a little bit further. So what we really discussed were half-step hammer-ons or half-step pull-offs or, slides, I guess, of any nature. But we talked about how to do them by a half-step, and a half-step is the distance from here to here. It's two adjacent frets. Well, then we start talking about whole steps, and it's a little bit more challenging. So a whole step is when you skip over a fret. And it's more challenging because it's really hard to reach that with these two fingers, so you're probably going to want to use a different finger. You're probably going to want to skip over a finger. Well, you haven't really practiced that yet, and so it takes a little bit of effort. So it's something new that you have to work with. So, for example, you might work with whole step hammer-ons and whole step pull-offs. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody, and you notice when I'm doing my whole step hammer-ons and pull-offs that I'm also skipping over a finger. So yes, I'm skipping over a fret, but I'm also skipping over a finger. It's not always going to be that way, but you certainly don't want to develop poor technique and be the only guy on the block that's trying to do this. I see a lot of people that try to do whole step hammer-ons like this, and really you're just making things a lot harder. I know that using a different finger is probably a little tough and challenging, but trust me, it's so much harder to do this in the long run. To really work with this. And if you develop that bad habit, then eventually 6 months down the road, you're only playing with 3 fingers, and everyone's looking at you funny, like, why don't you learn how to use like 4 fingers and learn how to kind of organize your fingers a little bit better, and you'll play more efficiently and more effectively. Okay, so those are whole step hammer-ons and whole step pull-offs. Can I do them with these fingers? Absolutely. One of the tricks too to doing them is making sure that you get as close to this fret wire as you can. So if I'm doing from 5 to 7, I certainly don't want to be on this side of 5 because that makes my reach to 7 that much greater. That's not a big deal, but I mean we're talking about 5 or 6 millimeters. Well, that is a big deal in the world of guitar. So even 5 or 6 millimeters can count. So you want to, kind of use all the space. Another really big tip is to try to do your hammer-ons and pull-offs in the beginning, kind of towards the center or towards the kind of end of the guitar. The beginning of it, where it kind of originates over here, is really stiff. In case you try to move some strings over here, you'll notice it's really, really stiff. Hard to move things around, hard to kind of get a real good grip on it. I wouldn't suggest it. If you're a beginner at hammer-ons, pull-offs, or slides, really just kind of aim for the center of the neck, and that's why I give all my examples here. So those are whole step hammer-ons, whole step pull-offs. So the next thing that we can do is learn how to start combining some of the techniques. So if we wanted to do hammer-ons and pull-offs together, or pull-offs and hammer-ons together, right? Different kind of successions. So here's a good example. Let's say if we did a hammer-on and a pull-off. So I'm gonna go back to half steps because now we're kind of stepping up a little bit in terms of difficulty. So I don't want to step up in terms of difficulty on both sides. As far as, hey, we're doing harder techniques and we also have to do the hard distances. So let's keep an easy distance, which is the half step, but we're going to do the harder technique of doing a hammer-on and pull-off together. Well, now you hear 3 notes, but once again, I only picked 1. Hammer-on, pull-off. Hammer-on, pull-off. Hammer-on, pull-off. Hammer-on, pull-off. Okay, so hopefully you guys kind of get that. So it's combining 2 techniques. That's going to take a little bit more work. If you hear something like this, I'm sorry, that's probably a poor example. That last note kind of trailed off. That means that you need to work on your pull-off. Now if you hear something like this, where you heard the first note, you heard the third note, but the second one was missing, then you need to work on your hammer-on. So the case here really is that you want all of your techniques to be equal. You want them all to so that they keep that note going at the same volume. So if you're doing your note and you hit it, and then all of a sudden you do your hammer-on and it gets down to here in volume, and then you do your pull-off, it'll be inaudible. You won't be able to hear it anymore. So you need to keep that volume going. That's very important, so that's why you want to make sure work with that first video, really try to get your techniques down. So that's hammer-ons, half-step hammer-on and pull-off kind of combinations there. Let's try the exact opposite with a pull-off and a hammer-on. So we're starting with the pull-off side of it now. So we're going to start, let's say if we had 2 numbers, instead of going 5, 6, 5, we would go 6, 5, 6, the exact opposite. Once again, you're hearing 3 notes. You only see me pick one of those notes though. So that's really important. Make sure you're getting that. I'm doing my pull off and then hammering back on. So I have good technique on my pull off, good technique on my hammer on. If I don't, once again, that note's going to die and you won't hear it by the time the second or third note comes around. Let's do a few examples around the fretboard. And those are pull-offs and hammer-ons, again, in combination. So that's an easy way. Of course, you can always take that a step further and you can do them as whole steps or step and a halves and so on and so forth, which is something that we'll discuss in a later video. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you around.